Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back. Today's Daf Yomi is YOMA Ayin Dal. To begin on Ayin Gimel base, 5 lines from the bottom of the Amid. Yesterday we began the new parak, which tells us that in Yom Kippur, one is meant to experience 5 different aspects of discomfort, 5 inuyim, achil shtiyah, etc. The Mishnah had a lashon of Yom Kippurim Asr b'achil shtiyah. The Gemara kash on that. Why only Asr? Don't we know that some of these activities, such as achila or shtiyah, generate kares? There's a chiyuv. There's a penalty involved. It's not just asr. Why then does the Mishnah refer to them as asr? Says the Gemara, was speaking when he ate half a shear. And a chatz shear does not generate kares. It's only asr. Asr? Well, that works according to Rabbi Yehuda, who says if one has less than a shear, it's also asr min haTorah. Chatzi shear asr min haTorah. What about Rish Lakish? He seems to disagree with Rabbi Yehuda, as we're going to see in today's Daf Be'ez Hashem. If that's the case, then why is it asr? If it's less than a shear, says the Gemara, even Rish Lakish agrees. Although min haTorah there's no isser, but there is an isser midrabanan for eating less than a shear. Perhaps it will lead to more. So that's what the Mishnah meant. Yom Kippurim Asr, B'achilu, Shtiyah, etc. Even if it was less than a shear. See, the word Achila generally means a kazais, which is less than the required amount for Yom Kippur, which has to equal the volume of a Keseves Hagas, as we learned yesterday. Because only that amount really puts a person at ease, has that satiating effect. So if it's only a kazais, that's really less than a shear. And therefore it's only Asr. Whether min haTorah, according to Rabbi Yehuda, or even according to Rish Lakish, it's asr midrabanan. Says the Gemara, how can you say that according to Rish Lakish, chatzi shear is asr midrabanan? 5 lines from the bottom. If that's the case, lo nechayev alei carbon shvua. If it would be asr, then there wouldn't be any possibility of having a shvua attached to it. If a person commits himself with an oath to refrain from eating, if he does not fulfill, he does not conform to those words, to that shvuah, he goes out and he eats, he has to bring a carbon shvuah. Now we know that a shvuah, a self-imposed shvuah, self-imposed isser, cannot be chal. It cannot attach itself to something which is already previously asr. For instance, a nevela, which a person may not eat. Why not? It's asr min haTorah. We have all committed ourselves with a bris, with a shvuah, to keep all the dinei haTorah. You can't go ahead and generate your own shvuah. One shvuah can't attach itself to another shvuah. In shvuah chala al shvuah. One isser cannot be added to a previously existing isser. In isser chala al isser. Says the Gemara, if you're going to tell me that according to Rish Lakish, even according to Rish Lakish, a half a shear is asr, then how could it be that he could go ahead and make his own shvuah? On top of that, if that's the case, lo nechayev alei carbon shvuah. There's no shvuah. There's no carbon shvuah attached to something which is already asr. In this case, even a chatz shear is already asr. If that's the case, aloma tanan, how are you going to explain the following Mishnah? Shvuah shalei oichal. If one says, I'm not going to eat, and he commits himself with a shvuah not to eat today, and what happened? V'achal nevelos, utreifos, he had all types of things which were already asr. Macholis hasuris, nevelos, treifos, shkatzim ramasim, chayiv. According to Tanakama, he's chayiv a carbon shvuah, even upon eating things which are already asr ba'achilu min haTorah. We're going to explain this soon. But Rabbi Shimon Poiter says no, because an avela is already asr min haTorah. You can't add your own shvuah. V'havina ba, and we asked the kasha on this Mishnah, I'm chayiv. Why? What did Tanakama say? That he's chayiv as a result of his shvuah. if he should eat a nevela or treifa, amay chayev, mushpa v'oimid mehar sinayu. He already committed himself with a shvua from the time of Har Sinai to refrain from nevela and treifa, etc. You can't add your own shvua on top of that. The Gemara provides two approaches. Rav Shmuel, Rabbi Yehuda, the Amri, they all explain that the pshat in the Tanna Kama, who says you're liable for your own shvua, even though it was something which was previously asur. He's speaking about a case where he included other things as well. B'koilel, dvarim hamatorim, even dvarim ha'asurim. He included items which are mutter together with these items which are asur. For instance, he says, I'm making a shvua. I'm not going to eat today things which are kosher, basar shchuta, and also basar nevela. In this case, the shvua that he generates can apply itself even to the dvar issa, because it's an all-encompassing shvua. It's an inclusive shvua, which includes within it elements of things which are not previously asur. So since it's not a shvua directed at something which is already asur, in this case we say that everything can be included as well. So since he is koilel dvarim hamaturim, he has in mind, or as some Mefarshim say, he explicitly expressed it as so. I'm not going to eat apples, bananas, oranges, basar, kosher, and basar treif. Here we say that this all-inclusive isser, this all-inclusive shvua that he is imposing, can incorporate within it also the dvarim asurim. So that's the pshat in the Tanna Kama. If one gets up and says, shvua, I'm not going to eat A, B, C, D, E, F, and includes divrei isser as well, and he goes ahead and eats the nevelo, the treifa, he's chayiv on two accounts, because he ate something which is asur min haTorah, and also because he was oiveir on his own shvua. It's called isur koilel, and Rabbi Shimon disagrees with this. He holds that there's no advantage to an isur koilel, to an all-encompassing and inclusive isur. There's no mila to that. We don't say migu, since the shvua gets activated for one aspect, it applies itself to the other aspect as well. He doesn't hold on that, and therefore he says, even in this case, you will be pater, your own shvua will not be effective pertaining to the nevela and the treifa, things which already have an isser beforehand. So that's one approach. Rav Shmuel Rav Yehuda. B'reish Lakish Amar, he says, I'll give you another approach. The only way to really find this halacha, to apply this halacha, is as follows. Ella b'mefarish chatzishir. We're speaking where he expressed clearly shvur shelo oichal, even a half a kazayis. V'alib de Rabbanan, in line with Shittas Rabbanan, who hold Masechah Shvuos, that the simple meaning of shelo oichal is a kazayis. Stam achila is a kazayis. So if he's mefarish, he specifically says, well, I'm not going to eat even less than a kazayis. Mefarish chatzishir. In this case, the new shvua that he is generating is very different than the old Isser Nevela. Because the Isser Nevela min haTorah only applies to a sheer kazayis. Therefore, says the Tanna Kama, in this case, since he added a new element to the Isser, I'm going to refrain from eating even half a kazayis of food today. That's not something which would be asur. Even if he eats an nevela, that wasn't asur. And therefore his shvua is chal. It works. There's no shvua on top of a shvua. There's no isser added to a previous isser. He was mefarish, I'm not going to eat a half a kazayis. There's never an isser on eating half a kazayis of nevela. Therefore says Tanna Kama, if he should go ahead and eat a half a kazayis, even of nevela, he's chayiv because of his shvua. Oy bistam, or we're speaking that he simply says shvua that I'm not going to eat, without explaining the shear. I'll leave with Rabbi Kiva, in line with Rabbi Kiva, who says that simply saying Shloi Eichal automatically refers itself to less than a shear as well. The Amar Adam Oiser Atzma B'Kolshu. Okay, this is discussed in Masechah Shavuos. Rabbi Kiva maintains that even if he says Shloi Eichal Stam, without explaining any shear, it's automatically applied even to less than a shear. So this fellow who says Shavuot Shloi Eichal today, it automatically refers to even less than a shear. So if he gets up and eats a half a kazais, even of an avela, he is chayiv a korban shvua because he went against his shvua. And we're speaking less than a shear, kazais of an avela, which has no pre-existing isur menater, which only applies to a kazais. Here's less than a kazais. He's only chayiv because of his shvua, because of his isur, and therefore he's chayiv a korban shvua. So who's speaking? Rish Lakish. Apparently Rish Lakish holds that less than a shear of a nevela has no isser to it. And therefore he can impose his own shvu on that. This is in contradiction, in direct contradiction to the suggestion that we had previously. That Rish Lakish agrees to Rabbi Yochanan to some extent that a chatzi shear of a dvar isser is asur at least midrabanan. We see clearly that it's not so. And as Rashi explains, you see, even if it's midrabanan, you still wouldn't be able to add a isser shvu on top of that, because we learn from a pasuk of a lo yisasur min hadavar. The Torah tells us, the Torah warns us, don't stray from the path that the Chachamim set forth for us. So really, every din d'Rabbanan is a form of Issa d'Oraisa. It's rooted in Torah. If that's the case, then should this be true, that a chatzi shear would be asur midrabanan, even midrabanan, it's also considered somewhat of an Issa d'Oraisa, in which case you could not add your own shvu on top of that. Rish Lakish clearly says otherwise. He says, if he's going to commit not to eat a half a shear, then that shvuah is activated, even pertaining to nevela, because there is no isser to eat a half a shear nevela. So it's a steer. Says the Gemara, maybe we could differentiate between isser d'Rabbanan, such as this case, where perhaps his shvuah can ride on top of Issa d'Rabbanan. It's not called a shvuah on top of a shvuah, because it's only Issa d'Rabbanan. And therefore, there's no stira between this Rish Lakish here. It's pashut why a shvuah works. It's only Issa d'Rabbanan. And his shvuah, which is Issa d'Oraisa, can ride on top of that. And our pshat in the Mishnah is correct. Speaking less than a shear, which is also midrabanan. Perhaps they'll explain that in the case of the shvuah, since the half a kazais and nevela is mutar min haTorah, kol chayil korban shvuah, that explains why a shvuah and the isra and the korban generated as a result will apply itself to this item. So the Gemara is sort of backing off from that svara, that every d'Rabbanan is a form of d'Oraisa. True, generally speaking, Torah says don't stray from the instructions set forth by the Rabbanan, lo yisasur min hadavar, but it's a ashara klolis. It's more of a general, all-encompassing warning, but it's not a specific isser to this case. And therefore, we don't treat it like an isser d'Oraisa. So yeah, although a chatz shear nevela is asur midrabanan, doesn't have the same severity as Issa d'Oraisa, and therefore, if he should say shvuah shaloi oichal, a half a kazayis, and he gets up and eats a half a kazayis in nevela, he's chayv a korban shvuah. But certainly it's asur midrabanan, as per our Mishnah. Could that be pshat? Says more, it cannot be, because we're going to find in a different Mishnah that even the Issa d'Rabbanan, it can affect the Iraisis as well. It's reckoned with. when we discuss even a context of Yisurim Daraisa. We treat it like it's Asr, even though it's only Midrabanan. And therefore, in our case, of Shvuah, it shouldn't work. Where do we find this concept? Batanan. Shvuah Sa'edis. So if one swears, he says, look, I can't help you. Right? Reuven approaches Shimon, he says, could you testify on my behalf? Shimon says, sorry, makes a Shvuah, I can't help you. I don't know. I have no information to benefit you. Shvuah Sa'edis. And it turns out that he's not being truthful. There's a penalty. There's an oynish for being over that shvuah seidus. And the Mishnah says, who does it apply to? Shvuah seidus ein neheges ela bruin l'ha'id. It only applies to somebody who's a kosher eid, who can be a potential witness. Otherwise, he's not really denying him any favor. He can't testify, even if he should choose to do so. We asked the Shai, who are we coming to exclude here? So the Mishnah already says there that it applies only to men, not to women, etc. When the Mishnah says it's specific to somebody who can be made, as opposed to somebody who cannot offer testimony, who are we coming to exclude? Rav Papa Amar l'muta im melech, a king. King doesn't have the ability to say edus. Mishnah Sanhedrin explains loy meid in oisei. The Gemara says because it's not a covet for a melech to be cross-examined in Bezdin. He's out of the picture. He can't even be a potential witness, even if he chose to do so. And therefore, if he denies the fact that he has information to offer, he's potter, because he can't even be a potential aid. Rav Achbar Yaakov Amar, I'll give you another example. A fellow who's engaged in gambling. Midrabanan is considered gezela. Because we all know when you wage that bet, you expect to win. You don't really want the other fellow to win. So it's called asmachta and v'chachamim. In Torah it's not a gezela, but v'chachamim, they consider that to be a gazlan, in which case a person who engages in this type of behavior is pasal edus. So the Mishnah is excluding a Masachik B'Kuvya. He's not chayiv by Shvuah Sa'edus, because Midarabanan, he's unfit to offer testimony. Now, says the more Midaraisa, this fellow is kosher. From Masachik B'Kuvya, Midaraisa Mechsi Chazi. Midaraisa, he can give Edus, he's not apostle. V'Rabbanan Hu Paslu. He's only apostle Midarabanan. What do we see in this Mishnah? V'Loika Chayla Alei Shvuah. Shvuah Sa'edus doesn't apply to him. Apparently, a psul d'Rabbanan or an issa d'Rabbanan is reckoned with, even in the context of Dairaisa. We see this fellow's puzzle to offer edus from d'Rabbanan is exempt from shvuah edus from Dairaisa. And likewise in our case, by chatzi kazais of nevela. Should your suggestion be correct? Should your approach be true that according to Rish Lakish, then there's issa d'Rabbanan by a chatzi share nevela, then how could Rish Lakish explain? How could he explain the shita of Tanakama, who says that a personal shvuah, a shvuah shaloi oichal chatzi share, will apply to a chatzi share nevela? Well, if it's asam d'Rabbanan, you can't add another isra on top of that. Just as we find here by the shvuah edus, that a psul d'Rabbanan carries weight, is considered, is accounted for, even in the context of a Issa D'Oraisa. Says, how can you compare two things? By Edus, it's a practical matter. What's the point of Shvuah Edus? You should have offered testimony, and you refuse to do so. That's only if you have the ability to be an Edus. Well, if you're Asam D'Rabbanan, the fact is, Bezdin will just throw you out. There's no liability there. You're not a chroi to offer testimony in a case where you can't. Shani Asam. There's a big difference between there. The Amakra, Imlo Yagit. Torah says, you know why he's held accountable? Because he refused to offer testimony. Vaila Baragadu Klal, this fellow can't. So in this case, even though it's only possible to Rabbanon, He's pater from Shavuos Eidus. He doesn't have the ability to say Eidus. So there's a big difference between there and here. By Shavuos Shaloi Eichal. True, a half a kazayas of nevela is perhaps asur midrabanan, but that still wouldn't prevent his own shvur, his self-imposed isra, from being chal on that chatzi zayis of nevela, because his own shvur is a shvur deraisa, and that can apply itself to something which is mutar midaraisa. So even though it's asur midrabanan, that wouldn't affect his own shvur. That wouldn't prevent his shvur from being applied there. It's not called shvur on top of a shvur. It's not called an isra on top of an isra. It's only asur midrabanan. So we answer the kasha. It could be that according to Rish Lakish, the chatzis shir is asur midrabanan. That explains our Mishnah. Yom Kippurim asur b'chilu shtir, speaking about a half a shir. It's asur midrabanan. And although a chatzis shir is asur midrabanan, he can get up and say, Shvur Shaloi Eichal, a half a shir. Half a shir in Avela. And be chayiv upon eating that half an Avela. Have to bring a carbon shvur because it's only asur midrabanan. That doesn't prevent the shvur deraisa from applying to that half a zayis. As opposed to Eidus. Over there, if he's not fit to say Eidus, be it midaraisa, even the Rabbanon, he's not liable for Shavuos Eidus. There's no point in coming to Bezdin and speaking. They're not going to listen to me in any case. Continues the Gemara. So how do we start off the sugya? We had a kasha. Yom Kippurim asur b'chilu shtia. Asur. It's more than asur. It's kares. Says the Gemara. V'chol eicha detani anish kares leitani isur. Do you mean to say that whenever we are referring to an Issa Kares, Loitani Asr, we'll never refer to it as Asr? That was the basis of the Kasha. That Asr is not Chiv Kares. Is that so? Vatani, listen to this brisa. We find Asr even by Chiv Kares. Vatanya Afabisha Amru Asr Bekulan. Even though we said that he may not engage in any of these activities. He must refrain from achila, shtia, rechitza, etc. Lo amru anush kares ella halo eichel v'shois v'oisem lach b'lavad. Nevertheless, Isa kares only applies to 3 items: achila, shtia, and malach. So what do you see? That the word aser clearly applies to achila v'shtia, right? Even though asur was said pertaining to all these inuyim, but you meant to know kares is only by achilu shtia and malach. Pretty clear the brisa applies the word asur to achilu shtia as well. Hachik the brisa meant like this: Kesha amru asur, lo amru el b'chatzi shir. When they said the word asur, it was only referring to a half a shir, which is only asur idem not teirim derabanan. Aval keshir anush kares. But if you would have a full shir, a chila shtia, certainly that would generate kares. And the brisa continues, va'afal bisha anush kares. And although we say there is isur kares, ein anush kares ela oichel v'shoyse v'oisem lach b'lavad. Of course, kares only applies to chila shtia and malach. So we revise the brisa. Certainly the word asur generally doesn't apply to something which is chayiv kares. The brisa as well meant asur by a chatzi shir. Okay, continues the Gemara. V'bois ema. Let's go back to our initial kasha. Our kasha on our Mishnah. Yom Kippurim asur b'chilu shtia. Asur b'chiv kares. So the first terrorist we're speaking about a chatzi shir, which doesn't have kares. It's only asur. V'bois ema. Another pshat says the Gemara. You're right. Kik tani asur asher. The word asur is not referring to achilu shtia, rather to the other items on the list. Because achilu v'shtia are more than just asur. It's chayiv kares. As we find in the following brisa, the Tanu, Rabbi Rav Yosef, they presented a brisa, they learned a brisa b'shar sifri de Rav, the other svarim taught on the base medrash of Rav. Rashi explained it's not Turas Kohanim, the other svarim, the midrashim on Bamidbar and Dvarim, What does it say there? Minayin liyom kippurim she'asur berachitza b'sicha uben idas hasandal ubetashin shamita. How do we know that on Yom Kippur you may not engage in the other activities, rachitza, sicha, etc.? Tamulayma Shabbosan. Pasuk says, Yom Kippurim is the day of Shabbosan, resting, refraining. And the pasuk there says, Shabbos Shabbosan he, lochem, v'yinisem et nafshei seichem. You meant to experience pain and discomfort. The fact that the word Shabbosan is mentioned in close proximity to Inoi, we learn that it's referring to Shvois. Refrain, remain passive. What does this mean? Let's go over to Rashi. Right before the wide lines, about 4 or 5 lines above the wide lines, we have the word Shabbosan in Rashi. Shabbosan says Rashi v'gabi iniksiv. Chayechid the Shabbosan ha'on b'Shabbos. And we learn as follows. Just as by Shabbos, where the word Shabbosan is mentioned, what happens there? Asmachu be'rabbanon she'ar malachis shelo yhoyu b'mishkan v'eina malacha gemura. We'll find the Chachamim generated other Isurim as well. They extended Isur Shabbos to other types of malachis which aren't really bona fide malachis. Chachamim added Isur d'Rabbanan to Shabbos. That's why I call it Shvus. We learn it from the pasuk Shabbos and Shvus. So that's by Shabbos. Hachanami says Rashi B'Yom Kippur Shabbos and T'chsiv l'gabi Inui T'chsiv Shabbos and Hulachem V'Nisem et Nafshei Seichem has come to tell you add to the Inui experience. Add to what? Add to the standard Inui, which is Achil V'Shtiyah, which has chorus. Add to that. Add other elements of Inui, other elements of passiveness. Lohisiv al Inui Achil V'Shtiyah Ka'asi. It's mashma from Rashi, by the way, that the other Inuyim that are going to be added and supplemented to the Achil V'Shtiyah, such as Rechitza, Sicha, etc., are only in the Rabbanon. Rashi compares it to the Isur Rabbanon of Shabbos. In any case, what's the point of mentioning this brisa? We see clearly that the brisa differentiates between Achil V'Shtiyah and the other Isur. In fact, the brisa doesn't mention Achil V'Shtiyah altogether. Menayin Yom Kippurim she'asur berachitza b'sicha, etc. Because the point of the brisa is to explain how we got to the other Isurim. The main Isurim are Achil V'Shtiyah. Right? That's the base. That's a source. From there, we learn the other ones as well. The main Inui, refrain from eating and drinking. Shabbos, which tells you Shvais, refrain from more. He's coming to tell you to add the other experiences of discomfort and Inui, Sicha, Sandal, etc. Says the more that will be the teretz in our Mishnah. Yom Kippurim is Asr. Asr means all the other things which are learned from Achil V'Shtiyah, because Achil V'Shtiyah form the source, are the marker for the concept of Inui. So indeed they are more than just Asr. They're Chayiv Karas. But the Chiddush is that in addition to the basic forms of Inui, Achil V'Shtiyah, we have other things which are indeed only Asr, such as Rechitza, Sicha, Niglas HaSandal, and Tasha Shamit. So in summary, we have 2 terutzim in our kasha. Why is it that the Mishnah says Yom Kippurim only Asr B'Achil V'Shtiyah? What happened to Isur Karas? First teretz was speaking that he ate less than a shear, which is only Asr, either Menat Torah, according to Rabbi Yehuda, or according to Rish Lakish Midrabanan. And the second teretz is that indeed the word Asr is simply explaining how we get to the other Isurim. Beyond Achil V'Shtiyah, which are certainly more than just Asr, they're Chayiv Karas. But how do we get to more than that? And as the Bryce explained, Shabbos and Shvos, we learned that the concept of Inui is meant to be extended beyond merely Achil V'Shtiyah, over to Rechitza, to Sicha, and that's what the Mishnah meant. Asr, it's Asr to engage in the other activities, in addition to Achil V'Shtiyah, which are of course more than just Asr. It's actually Chayiv Karas. Continues the Gemara. Gufa. So let's review the halacha. Chatzi shir, if one eats only a half a shir, Rabbi Yehuda Amar Asr Menat Torah, Rish Lakish Amar Mutar Menat Torah. Explains the Gemara. What's the basis of this machlekes? Rabbi Yehuda Amar Asr Menat Torah. Why is a half a shir Asr? Given the chazil starufi. since he can go ahead and add more to that. Suppose he ate half a kazayas of nevela. He can just add a half more and get to a total of a full shear. It's chazitz tarufi. He can add more to it and arrive at the full shear. If that's the case, isura ka'achal. Doesn't that prove that he's already engaging in isur? Right? Because otherwise, if what he ate until this point is completely mutter, how can he ever get to a full shear? Right? 0 over 0 doesn't equal anything. Apparently, that's an indicator of some sort that true, the true einish, malchus, curse doesn't apply unless he has a shear. But even less than a shear is considered engaging in this activity. He's somewhat committing an isser even with less than a shear. No, less than a shear is completely mutter. Torah says, don't eat isser. The word achila is referring to a shear kazayis. Less than that is not considered a masa isser. Rabbi Yehuda has a kash. I'll prove to you from a brayso that even a chatzis shear is also not Torah. Ainli ela kol sheyesh ne be'onish yeshna b'asar. Says the brayso perhaps. So speaking about achilas chaylev. Only an experience which involves an einish, which generates a einish curse, only then is yeshna b'asar. Is considered asar, is considered an experience for which there is an ashar. So perhaps there's only an isser if he ate a complete shear, which generates an einish. What about a case where you don't have an einish? Would that be asher as well? For instance, koi. Koi is a certain species of animals for which we have a suffix, whether it's a behema or a chaya. Now, if it's a behema, then the chaylev is aser. Chaylev behema is aser. But if it's considered a chaya, the chaylev of a chaya is mutter. So this is an example of a suffix. Or, says the brayso of a chatzi shear. He ate half a kazayis of chaylev. Now, in these cases, we don't have an einish. Hoyel ve'ena ba'einish. Perhaps since they don't lead to an einish. Yocha ena ba'asar. Perhaps there's no isra as well. Talmud loymar kol chaylev. The word kol includes these situations as well. So what do we see, says Rabbi Yehuda? I've just proven to you that a half a shear is asur not Torah. We have a ribi, kol chaylev. And Tosfos points out that in addition to the svara we mentioned earlier, the fact that it's chaditz tarufi, it could potentially turn into a complete shear. That seemed to be the svara of Yehuda earlier. We also need the pasuk of kol chaylev. And Tosfos says why? So he says because otherwise we wouldn't know how to expound on this pasuk. The svara that it's chazitz tarufi leads us to explain this pasuk in this manner. So we need both. We need the svara and the pasuk to bring out Rabbi Yehuda's point. Here, says Rabbi Yehuda, I've proven my point from a brayso. Chatzis shear is asur not Torah. Answers Rish Lakish, no, midrabanan. The brayso simply means that it's asur midrabanan, or cross machta ba'alma. The pasuk mentioned is just a basis for the isur d'Rabbanan. And I also agree that it's asur midrabanan, but not min Torah. And I'll prove my point. It's pretty clear that the brayso over here is only referring to Issa d'Rabbanan. Because look, the brayso included two things. Chatzi shear and this koi, or kvi, or kevi. Right? This breed of an animal on which we have a suffix, right? Now, you can't say that the Torah here is telling you that this koi, this kvi, the chaylev of the koi is considered asur. These are gedaitach doiraisa. The brayso is speaking within the context of doiraisa. In which case, the pasuk of kol chaylev is coming to tell you that a koi is to be treated like a behema as pertaining to its chaylev, which is asur. Koi sveikahu. Right? We know it's a suffix. There's an uncertainty as to the status, as to how to classify the koi. Isra kroler asui sveika. Does it make sense that the pasuk is coming to tell you that a situation of suffix has to be dealt a certain way? As Rashi points out, Bitmiya atu kabish kamish. Rashi is on Ayin Dalet based on top, out of place. Atu kabishmaya sveiku. Does Hashem have a suffix? Ibeim havi ichayavi. Whether it's a beim or chay. Of course, Hashem knows how to classify this animal. it's preposterous to say that the Torah is coming to tell you that this suffix animal is asur. The Torah knows what it is. Of course, we know that when we have a suffix, you have to go l'chumra. This is not the mokar for suffix d'oraisa l'chumra. How would it make sense that the Torah is coming to tell you on which you are mesupik, how to classify? Well, I want to tell you it's asur. Hashem knows what it is. To Hashem, it's not a suffix. Apparently, we're not speaking about how to apply the psukim in the Raisa. It's only midrabanan. A kai is asur midrabanan. Chatzishir is asur midrabanan. And the pasuk mentioned the Raisa is just an asmachta. So that proves my point. Says in 1 second. Imishim ha. Well, if only for this argument, lo iri, it wouldn't really be a raya to support your position, Rish Lakish. What was your kash? Why does the Torah have to say that the chaylev of a kai is asur? Not because it's a suffix. Because kai briya b'fnei atzmahi. This brisa is in line with his shita that holds that a kai is not either this or that. Rather, it's a new briya. It sits in a category of its own. Perhaps as an aspect of chaya to it, an aspect of behema. It's sort of a joint entity. In which case, how would we know how to treat it? If a Torah has to tell you, even the chaylev of this type of animal is asur. So perhaps the brisa is working with issa deraisa. And the reason why the Torah has to tell you the chaylev of a kai is asur, because I wouldn't know that it's asur. Because it's not really a complete behema or a complete chaya. Because if you want to follow this approach, that a kai is a briya b'fnei atzma, and that explains why the Torah has to address it, take a look at the next halach. Ha de amar Rav Yehuda bar Avin. He tells us like this: Av kol leisui kai. The more increases speaking about the Isser of Achilas Dam tells you that the word kol in the Torah, kol dam leisechelu, an inclusive word, is meant to be applied to the kai as well. The dam of kai is asur. Now, why would you need a pasuk? Kai is feiku, right? The Torah, if the kai is a suffix, behema or chaya, well, in either case, his dam is asur. Dam of behema is asur. Dam of chaya is asur. It's rekol or buyas feika. Why does the Torah have to be marba that? Of course, it's asur. Ela briya shani. Apparently, because we hold that it's a new type of animal. Perhaps it's not behema or chaya. It's something brand new. In which case, perhaps the dam would be mutter. That's what we need a pasuk to tell you it's asur. Hachanam briya shani. Likewise, in our sugi. When it comes to the chaylev, discussed earlier, you wouldn't know that this type of animal's chaylev is asur, and therefore there's a pasuk to tell you kol chaylev, even this animal, is kai, by definition, is neither a complete chaya or behema. His dam, his chaylev is asur as well. So at the end of the day, we don't really have a raya, a conclusive raya from this brisa. Right? We had a machlokes. Rabbi Yehuda says chatzi shir is asur na Torah because it could be mitzvah and become a full share. Rish Lakish disagrees. He says it's mutter min Torah. Rabbi Yehuda brought a raya from a brisa which says chatzi shir is asur because kol chaylev includes even a chatzi shir. Well, Rish Lakish says it's only drabanan. I'll prove to you it's drabanan because the other item mentioned there is certainly only a rabbinic issue. Kai, it's only a suffix. It must be a rabbanon discussion. The Gemara says no. Perhaps the Torah is addressing kai as well because it's a briya fnei atzma. So we don't really have a conclusive raya from the brisa one or the other. Continues the Gemara. How do we know that in Kippur you meant to refrain from achila, shtiya, rechitza, etc.? The pasuk uses a very general term. Ta'anos nafsheseichem. Pain yourself. Experience discomfort. How do we know what to do? Perhaps prick oneself with needles. How do we know it means achila v'shtiya? Tanarabanan. I'm going to have 3 brises to prove that the correct definition of ta'anos nafsheseichem is pertaining to achila v'shtiya, etc. Tanarabanan ta'anos nafsheseichem. Yochel yeshiv b'chama ibetzina. Perhaps it means sit out in the sun, sit in the shade in the cold, because she'd star, so that he experiences discomfort. Tamaleimar. The pasuk right away says, "B'chol malacha lesasu." We draw that parallel, a connection between inui and refraining from malacha. Ma malacha sheva al tasa. Just as by malacha it means sit and refrain. Be passive, don't do malacha. Af inui nefesh. Shev al tasa. Inui is also referring to something passive. Don't engage in X. Don't eat, don't drink, don't do rechitza. Says more, okay. But let's say, ve'ema, heicha diyasa b'shem shevachayim. Suppose he's sitting out in the sun and starts getting hot. Lo neimale kum tuv betula. Don't allow him to get up and go to the shade. You have to remain in the sun, because true, you don't have to walk into the sun, but if you're there already and it's getting hot and uncomfortable, you have to stay in position. Shev al tahasa. Yasa betula b'karli, or let's say he's sitting in the shade and it starts getting chilly. Lo neimale kum tuv b'shimsha. Don't tell him to get up. We don't allow him to get up and go over to the sun, because you want to experience inui. And here it's an example of a passive inui. So how come that's not included in the Mishnah? Do midim malacha. We compare inui to malacha. They're both meant to be of similar nature. Ma malacha lo chalakta. Just as when it comes to malacha, it's defined. It's universal. This ma'aseh malacha is asur in all situations. Af inui. Likewise, when it comes to inui, lo tachalk by. You can't differentiate between one situation and the other. For instance, you can't require him to sit in the sun only under circumstances if he has already been sitting there. It can't work like that. It has to be a defined, has to be a universal halacha. On the one hand, you're going to say, well, you're not mechuyev to go into the sun. But on the other hand, you're going to say, if you're already there, you have to remain there. It's not a standard procedure. It's different than malacha, and therefore we don't interpret the pasuk in that manner. Rather, it's referring to refraining from certain experiences, achila v'shtia, etc., which can be applied equally in all situations. Tan idach, we have another brayse. The pasuk says, "Ta'anos nafsheseichem." What does this mean? Yochel yeshiv b'chama ubetzina v'yitztar. Perhaps he's meant to go out into the sun, on the cold, in the shade, and experience tsar tamaloyma v'chamalacha leisas. So we compare inui to malacha as follows: Ma malacha dover shechayav v'nolav makom acha. Just as malacha, isur malacha, is something which elsewhere, for instance on Shabbos, generates chiyuv, generates isur kares. We already have a precedent for chiyuv kares by malacha elsewhere. Af inui nefesh. Likewise, when we speak about inui nefesh, it's that type, it's of that variety for which we already find a precedent elsewhere. Shechayav v'nolav makom acha. What is that? Ve'ei zeh. What is that? Zeh pigel v'noisa. Eating pigel, eating noisa, has chiyuv kares. And that's the inui the Torah is referring to. Don't eat pigel v'noisa on Yom Kippur. If he eats it, he's he'll have twice chatos. So that's what the pasuk is referring to. Refrain from eating. Okay, so perhaps we'll limit it to pigel v'noisa. Of a pigel v'noisa shem b'kares. Perhaps I'll apply to that because there's isur kares. We have a precedent for isur kares by pigel v'noisa. V'lo yavis hatevel she'ein b'kares. But I won't include isur of achilas tevel on Yom Kippur. There's no kares there. Perhaps that's not asur. Tamaloymar ta'anu v'i nisem esnam she'seichem. The pasuk says ta'anu, and also v'i nisem, which is basically telling you, include even that experience as well. It's a reboot. Include isur achilas tevel and kippur as well. Okay, reba. So I included that as well. But let's stop there. Aviyat tevel should be misa. Perhaps I'll include tevel because we find a precedent for chiyuv by tevel. There's misa b'dei shemaim upon eating tevel throughout the year. So perhaps I'll incorporate it into isur Yom Kippur as well. But not nevela, which has no misa. It's only a lav if he eats nevela. How do we know that's asur as well? Tamaloymar, ta'anu, v'inisem, esnam riba. Once again, the pasuk is an all-inclusive pasuk. Even nevela would be asur in Kippur. Fine, but let's stop there. Obvious nevela, shubalav. We find that nevela already has some sort of stringency to it, some sort of lav. Perhaps that's why it's asur in Kippur. But I won't include chulin she'einen b'lav. There's no issur to eat chulin throughout the year. Tamaloyma, once again, it's a riboy ta'anu v'nisem shemseichem riboy. Av ya chulin she'einen b'kum echayil. I'll include chulin because there's no mitzvah to eat chulin. So I understand why it's asar in Kippur. V'li obvious ha'truma she'i b'kum echayil. But perhaps I won't include Truma, for which there's a mitzvah to go eat Truma throughout the year. Perhaps that won't be Asar on Yom Kippur. Once again, the Riba. Talmud Loimar, Ta'anu, Ve'i Nisem Sechem, Riba, to include even Truma. Fine, I'll include Truma. Obvious at Truma, She'ene Balta Siro. Although there's a mitzvah to eat Truma, there's no issa to leave it beyond the expiry date. So perhaps, don't eat it on Yom Kippur, eat it tonight. But obvious at Kachim, She'ene Balta Siro, but I can't include Kachim into the issa of Achil of Yom Kippur because Kachim has a mitzvah to eat the Kachim. Also, don't leave it over. So perhaps there's a svara that eat it on Yom Kippur. Talmud Loimar, once again, Ta'anu, Ve'nisem, Sechem, Riba, to include all these cases. So the conclusion is, you may not eat anything on Yom Kippur. Now, if you have any reason to challenge my drasha, I'll prove it from another drasha. If one is over on these inuyim, he gets misa. His nefesh should be lost. And this is a midah keneged midah for not complying with the din of Yom Kippur. So apparently if his nefesh is being lost, he gets kares. That's because he didn't conform to the inui properly. An inui which involves some sort of lessening of the nefesh. Inui shehu avedas hanefesh. Apparently the inui that he was meant to fulfill was the inui which involves lessening the power of his nefesh. What is that? Ve'ezezeh, what's it referring to? Zachil. Refraining from eating and drinking, which sort of makes him lose some of his nefesh power. It lessens the nefesh. So that's why he gets kares, because he didn't do avedas nefesh on his own. So he gets kares, which is the true. Unfortunately, it's the ultimate avedas nefesh. So the pasuk here is alluding to the essence, the definition of inui, which is meant to involve avedas nefesh, refraining from eating and drinking. So this is the brayso. Now, why do we have to have another makar, another source for the same halacha? What did the brayso mean? If you'll come and challenge my first limud, then have another source. What argument could you have presented? Perhaps when the pasuk says v'nisem, it's referring to tashmish, refrain from tashmish. As we find that there's an isser elsewhere, we find a precedent to isser of tashmish by rayis. Right? We compared inui to malacha, just as malacha is something which we find elsewhere on Shabbos. Likewise, inui is something which involves an experience, for which we have a precedent of isser, of chorus, elsewhere. Perhaps instead of applying it to achila, apply it to tashmish. We find a similar activity, arayis, which has chorus. That's why we need the next pasuk. We learn from there that the inui is something sheyesh by avedas nefesh. What does it refer to? As achila shti, refraining from food and drink. So that's brayso number 2, which proved that inui means refraining from achila v'shtiya. Tvei Rabbi Shmuel Tana, in the Beis Medrash of Rabbi Shmuel, they presented a third brayso. Nemer kan inui, and in Kippur it says ta'anu, lashon of inui, painting oneself. V'nemer lahalan inui, and elsewhere we find a reference to inui. Vayancha, vayarivecha. This is by the man. Hashem starved you. Ma lahalan inui ra'avan, just as over there it's speaking about inui pertaining to hunger, refraining from eating. Avkan inui ra'avan, here as well, the inui is referring to refraining from food and drink. V'neilafim tanas b'noisai. Why can't we learn from another reference of inui? Lavan told Yaakov, im tanas b'noisai, if you'll withhold tashmish from my daughters. So we see that inui is referring to tashmish. So perhaps in Yom Kippur, refrain from tashmish and not referring to achil. Don an inui de rabbim, inui de rabbim. We learn inui of Yom Kippur, which is a public inui, applying to all equally, from the inui by man, which is also something that was a public experience. V'ein don an inui de rabbim, inui de yochid. You can't learn inui of Yom Kippur, which is rabbim oriented, from the inui by Lavan, by Yaakov, which is a private affair. V'neilav mi inui de Mitzrayim. Okay, you're looking for a public inui referring to tashmish? We have it by Mitzrayim. Hashem saw our discomfort. V'raminan, it's referring to precious derech eretz. They had to refrain from relations. So we see that Inay de Rabim is referring to Tashmish. Perhaps that's what Inay Yom Kippur is all about. Ela donen Inay b'dei Shemayim. We learn Inay Yom Kippur, which is b'dei Shemayim, which was established by Hashem. Inay b'dei Shemayim, from another example of Inay, which was presented by Hashem, such as the Inay by the Midbar, Ayancha b'Yervecha, starving you. Ve'ein donen Inay b'dei Shemayim. We can't learn Inay Yom Kippur, which is b'dei Shemayim, Inay b'dei Adam, from the Inay of Tashmish, which they experienced in Mitzrayim, which was brought about by humans, by people. It's a different type of thing. So in conclusion, we have three Makairos, that Ta'anos Nam Shesech Yom Kippur is referring to refraining from food and drink. Either because we compare to Malacha, which is Shev al Tasa, it's a passive experience, refrain from food and drink, or Avadis HaNefesh, it involves Ibud HaNefesh, refraining from eating and drinking, who contribute to the Nefesh. Or Tanei Rishmo presented a K'tereshava, Ini here, from Ini in the Midbar, Vayancha Vayirvecha, referring to refraining from food and drink. So what indeed was the hardship that Yisrael experienced in the Midbar when they had the man? It says the Pasuk, Hamachilcha man b'Midbar. Hashem who fed you man, Leman anoischa. So that it generates hardship to develop, to bring out the true loyalty and commitment and dependence of Yisrael on Hashem. So what exactly was the hardship of Machlokes, Rabbi Ami, Rabbi Asi? Chad Amar, one explained, they were living in a constant state of uncertainty. They had today's shipment of man, and that's it. They had to wait until the next day for more. You cannot compare a person who has bread in his basket and feels safe and secure to a person who doesn't have bread in his basket, who's living in a perpetual state of uncertainty. This brought about their emunah and the bitachon in Hashem. That's one pshat. The other one explained, you can't compare a person who can actually see the food that he's experiencing. That makes it a more comprehensive mealtime experience. He enjoys it with all his senses, as opposed to the man, which didn't have that. To a person who doesn't see what he's eating. So the man had all flavors. Whatever you had in mind, that's what you tasted, but it looked like a plain bean. It didn't have that appeal like ordinary food has. Amar Rav Yosef, Mikan Remez L'Sumen. We learn from here, Remez, that blind people, since they're lacking that facet, they're not fully satiated. She'oichlin vein svein, they eat, but they're not fully satiated because they're missing that aspect of the mealtime experience. They can't see what they're eating. Amar Abaye Hilkach, therefore, man the islay sudasa, one who has a meal to eat, loy lechla ela b'yomama, should eat it during daytime when it's light, so that he fully experiences the experience. Amar Abazer, Mikra, where do we find this in a pasuk? Toiv mare einayim mehalach nafesh. It's better if you could also see what you're eating, rather than just mehalach nafesh, than just inserting it and ingesting it without seeing it. On a similar note, Amar Shlokish, Toiv mare einayim be'isha. You're meant to know that gazing at an isha can be more desirable and more attractive, even more than the actual mass of tashmish. Shenamar toiv mare einayim. Gazing is even more desirable mehalach nafesh than the actual maas. Therefore, it says the Taisus Yishanim, Hilkach tzorich lizoir ma'id mimenu. The person has to take great care to avoid this and so. So we put him on notice. You should know that there's a great Yitzhahara just for Re'iyas Einayim, and be careful. The pasuk says, Ki yitein b'kois einay, yishach b'misharm. If one focuses on his kois, indulges in drinking, yishach b'misharm, he walks a straight path. What does this mean? Rabbi Ami and Rabbi Asi, they both explain like this. Chad Amar, one explained, Kol hanoisen eini b'koisei. One focuses on his kois, he overdrinks. Ha'aroyes kulan doimois olav kemisha. Drinking brings about frivolity, and he loses his sense of balance and sense of judgment, and arayas of Isser appear like a straight plane, meaning it's all mutter. He doesn't feel the severity. V'chad Amar, another one explained, Kol hanoisen eini b'koisei. If one focuses on his drinking, his habit will draw him into doing things which are dishonest. Out of desperation, he might reach over to other people's property to feed his habit. The whole world looks to him like just plain, like flat land, accessible. He doesn't have the proper respect for other people's property. Out of necessity, he needs to feed his habit. He might resort to dishonest activities. Okay, brief chazara. The Mishnah said Yom Kippurim Asr. Gemara says Asr means either Chatzi Shir, or it's referring to the other Inuyim other than Achila V'Shtir. Chatzi Shir, according to Rabbi Yehuda, is Asr not Torah. It's Chazil Starufi, it can be combined with more. The Pasuk says Kol Chelev. Rish Lakish says only Midrabanan. We had 3 Makoros that the Inuy involved was refraining from food and drink. The hardship in the Mun was because either they were in a state of uncertainty, they couldn't see what they were eating. We learned about being careful from a Re'iyah of an Isha, and from overindulging in wine drinking. Kol tov to you and Atzlacha Rab.